Part 5. The Kingdom Theorem. One moment. The natural evolution of the city-state theorem is therefore to assert that Bikini Bottom, as a city, does hold some authority, but only at a local level. The actual state is then the entire sea, ruled over by Neptune, with Bikini Bottom being just one of countless towns beneath Neptune's control. Therefore, its mayor will still hold some power, and Rock Bottom would simply be a neighboring town. Comparisons to Theognis and the city-state theorem are cute but superficial. This theorem, its supporters say, has no major holes. Its strength is its simplicity. Why would the creators of a children's show be so meticulous with their canon? Why bother referencing classical Greece or even allude to political systems its audience would not know? Children are simple creatures. They understand simple power structures like monarchies, and that's what most children's shows go with anyway. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, Sophia the First, Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure, they all base themselves in simply easy-to-understand political terms. Why should we expect a show about a talking kitchen sponge to be any different? The strength in the Kingdom Theorem lies in what we do not see in the show. We do not see any sort of defensive fortification sealing Bikini Bottom off from the rest of the ocean, which would suggest a sort of city-state. We do not see a very strong executive power. The city's mayor only makes 2 appearances during our accepted canonical time frame, nor do we see any direct references to a Bikini Bottom-specific military. Mr. Krabs references being in the Navy a few times, but this could just as easily be an ocean-wide organization. Neither does he state that he was in the Bikini Bottom military. The argument is therefore one of Occam's razor. This is the simplest solution. And it is true in many ways. The Kingdom Theorem is perhaps the least disagreeable one, with the fewest holes to pick at. Anything which can be attributed to evidence for the city-state theorem can also be attributed to being a sign of the show depicting a monarchy, or dismissed out of hand as insignificant reaches of logic. The large city which appears on screen for a moment in Pizza Delivery can be taken as another city-state, but is it not more simple to assume that it's simply another city within the same realm? Again, we do not see any of the sort of infrastructure or fortifications one would expect out of a city-state, even though we do not see it for very long. And those references to Atlantis and apparent gods of Greek history? Well, it just comes with the property. You make a show about an undersea civilization for long enough, you'll make an Atlantis reference. And the show is not strictly homaging Greece. After all, they named their king Neptune. The area in which he and SpongeBob have their Krabby Patty making duel is clearly a Colosseum, not a Greek-style amphitheater. Note, the SpongeBob wiki explicitly calls the Poseidon Greek in style, though this is clearly erroneous, and we should not really trust people who invest their spare time into writing extensively about SpongeBob's lore to know much about historical architectural style. But the Kingdom Theorem is not airtight by any means. For example, the biggest logical flaw lies in there being a national anthem for Bikini Bottom. Oh, Bikini Bottom, we pledge our hearts to you, as faithful and deep and true and blue as you. Bikini Bottom, we love you. I probably botched that. But while Mr. Krabs being in the Navy does not preclude the existence of a unified kingdom, it does raise more questions than it answers, should we accept the Kingdom Theorem as truth. What need would a single undersea kingdom have for a military? This would suppose a complete political control over the ocean, making a standing army superfluous. It could be that this kingdom has something of a military-industrial complex, our overspenders, or that the military is more of a militia force. But it could also suppose that Bikini Bottom is a city within one of a great many of sea kingdoms, which would be potentially fascinating. Would there be more mythological gods of the sea ruling other kingdoms or oceans? Does Manannan Mac Lear command an Atlantic empire? And does he train his sword at Neptune's Pacific? I find this doubtful, as nothing of this sort of lore has ever appeared in SpongeBob's history, even including later seasons, though we do get continued reference to Bikini Bottom possessing its own military. As interesting as this idea may be, It seems as though it has never been on the minds of the show's creators. This then creates a paradox which Kingdom Theorem adherents must resolve. Are there no other undersea kingdoms? If there are no other undersea kingdoms, then how can there be a military? And if there is a military, then how can there be no one for it to fight? Frequently cited needs include combating piracy and other brigands. Pirates are clearly shown as canonical in several early episodes, most notably in Dying for Pie. And the adventures of Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy indicate that the city is not without its nuances that an organized armed force should be on the ready for. But in the case of these villains, wouldn't the police suffice? And none of this happily resolves the issue of Bikini Bottom having a national anthem. But if the national anthem tidbit disqualifies the Kingdom Theorem, it certainly cannot validate the city-state theorem. A national anthem implies something more sprawling and advanced than a city-state. And again, we have seen that there are no clear references to there being any kind of significant executive power vested in Bikini Bottom. The mayor's appearances feel largely ceremonial. Even King Neptune, despite the fear he incurs when he chooses to show up, does not seem to hold any explicit political power. It's almost like no one knows who's in control. It's almost like... No, that can't be right. Can it?